Well, what's going on, guys? So for this week, I worked on improving my farming system a bit. So when I first worked on this was about 2 years ago, and now I know a lot more about game dev, programming, and particle effects and things like that. So I decided to combine the separate scripts I had for farming, like seeding, tilling, and everything like that, into one interactable script, so that the soil tile, as you can see here. And actually, let me bring this over here a little bit. So whenever a soil tile is uh, collides or triggers with the trigger collider of the player interactable, it shows what kind of tile it is, and if there's an occupant on it, so like a large rock here, it'll show that as well. So you always know what is the active tile you're working with, because I was having trouble with, you know, adjacent tiles being both active at the same time, but it should just be one tile that's active. So now if you go over here, you pull up the garden hoe, till the soil, and now it's a tilled plot. So you always know, if it's weeds, and let me just chop this here, and those weeds go away, and now it just becomes dirt soil, and you can farm there. And same thing with the tree here. It actually has like 100 health, so it takes a little while. But basically, if there is a child game object on the tile, whether it be a tree, a rock, weeds, whatever it is, it's going to show as there's an occupant on the tile, so you can't till there. So for example, I could till here, and I'll probably have to change this to red too to signify like you can't till there. So I'm clicking here, and you can't tell because there's a child on there, child game object. Um, so everything you can see here, from the pickup to the tilling to everything like that, is all triggered by this player interaction. So for next week, I'm going to work on the actual seeding, and I'm going to see how I can make it so the different stages of the plants grow, all combined into the player interaction script. So that's what I did this week. If you want to stick around, I'll show you the scripts. Actually, it's mainly one script, but all right. So let's see. I'll start with the soil tile, which is actually derived from the terrain tile. Okay, so this terrain tile has everything from is tilled, is seeded, is watered, and this basically handles what state the actual soil tile is in. So after you use the garden hoe, it will it'll till it, which will basically say is tilled is now true, and it changes the mesh of the tile. And then I also have it, so after you harvest, it goes back to dirt tile, the seed tile after you put the seeds, and then if you remove a tree or a rock, tile occupant removed, and then watering. And this is kind of like a new thing I'm working on too, where there's probably going to be one random plot in each area, maybe two, I don't know, that will kind of uncover a hole that would lead you to like a randomly generated type cave. So I'm working on that as well. So that's the soil tile, and then the player interaction. And I'll show you here. It's basically an empty game object on the player. So it's this here. It's a sphere collider on this. And this handles all the triggers that could possibly happen. And I'm working on that in an Excel sheet of all the possible things the player could interact with, whether it be NPC, mailbox, door. But right now I'm using tags. So if interacts with an animal, NPC, soil tile, which I showed just now. What should that interaction UI show? Which would be at the bottom left of the screen. So let me just enable that. So you can see here I have like eggplant, but you could change it to whatever actually gets interacted with. Because I think it's important, especially after you plant, to know how many days are left to harvest and things like that, which you can't remember after you plant like 50 different crops. So I'm trying to think along the lines, if I was playing the game, what kind of information I would need and when. And yeah, so that's basically, I'm not going to go through the whole script because it's very, very long. It's right now we're at almost 400 lines. But basically it's taking the different tags that the player interacts with and activating the particular information. Let me see where the soil tile is here. Okay, so if it interacts with a soil tile, these are the possible occupants that it could be that should show up on the UI, whether it be a rock, a large rock, tree, and basically what it does is it calls the player interaction UI manager, and then it updates the name, the icon, and if there's a description of the occupant in that UI. So like if it's an eggplant that's planted there, it's going to show the name as well as the icon. And this is, maybe this is getting a little bit more complicated than I would have liked. I made another script called Item Manager, and I have it set to load all resources from the, or all items from the resources folder, so I don't have to add those individually. So right now I have 84 different items, and they're sorted alphabetically. Basically what it does is find that particular item. So in this case, I have an item as, let's say, tilled soil. And this item is going to have a sprite, which is the sprite of the tilled soil. And I was using enums, but it's you can't do it because every time I add a new one, it's going to change the reference point of the enum. So I gotta erase that. But I'm strictly just going off of the name. But it's going to pull the icon, the name, and then if there's a description, let's say the 3 days to harvest or something like that. Otherwise, it's not going to enable a description because there's nothing there. It's just the title and the name and the icon. So that's what I did this week. Pretty happy with it. Big improvement from 2 years ago. And for next week, again, I'm going to make the different prefabs for the different stages of the crops, and maybe make this red if the player's tilling and it's on a untillable plot, so it's not just yellow all the time. All right, so we're already almost at 9 minutes. I'm going to close here. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any suggestions or comments below. Thanks for watching.